What is it that's holding you back, keeping you from becoming everything that God has created you to be, living your purpose and reaching your destiny? Is it self doubt, feeling that you don't measure up to others? Perhaps it's fear or lack of resources, offenses and challenges, maybe even past or current circumstances. Well, I want you to know that these are pathologies, diseases of the mind that negatively impact how you think and perceive things that invade your everyday life. You can overcome these peculiarities and become conquerors, living in the purpose that God has for your life. The Bible in Philippians 4:13 teaches us, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Hello, I'm your coach Dee Johnson, and I'm going to share with you on how you can overcome these pathologies and be all that God created you to be on today's Watering the Seed. Some relationships don't drain you because love was absent. They drain you because love became one sided. You became the listener, the fixer, the dependable one, the strong friend, the one who showed up even when your own heart was running low. And somewhere along the way, what started as friendship slowly turned into emotional labor. A place where you were needed often, but nurtured rarely. This episode invites you to pause and ask, have I been valued or have I only been available? Because being chosen to carry everyone else's weight does not mean you were created to abandon yourself. Today, we're breaking the cycle of toxic friendships, guilt based loyalty, and one sided connections, and making room for boundaries, healing, and relationships that pour back. Hey, Seeds. Welcome back to Watering the Seed. I'm Coach D. Jackson, and today we're talking about something that sounds simple on the surface, but baby, when you have lived it, you know it can feel heavy. Today's episode is called Breaking the Cycle, the chosen one's guide to navigating toxic friendships. Now, when I say chosen one, I'm not talking about someone walking around thinking they're better than everybody else. No, no, sir, no, ma'am. We're not doing spiritual ego today. When I say chosen one, I'm talking about the person in the friendship who somehow became the emotional backbone, the one everybody calls when they're falling apart, the one who listens, the one who shows up, who gives grace, who checks in, who prays, the one who forgives over and over again, the one who notices when everybody else is hurting, but nobody seems to notice when they are running on empty. Yeah, that kind of chosen one. And here's the hard truth. Sometimes you were not chosen because they valued you. No, sometimes you were chosen because they knew you would tolerate what others would not. Now let that sit for a second. Two are better than one, for if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. That's scripture. Ecclesiastes 4 and 9. Friendship should include mutual support. One person should not always be the lifter while the other always leans. Because some friendships don't become toxic overnight, they become toxic through repeated imbalance. One person gives, the other receives. One person bends, the other expects them to bend. One person apologizes to keep the peace, going along to get along. The other, well, they keep creating storms and calling it normal. And before you know it, you're not in a friendship anymore. You're in an emotional assignment. Okay? You're in an emotional assignment, and one that you never agreed to carry, but you're carrying it. So, today we are going to talk about how to recognize toxic friendships, how they impact the person who keeps giving, how to set boundaries, and how to heal without carrying guilt for choosing yourself. Because, seeds, breaking the cycle does not always mean blaming people. Sometimes breaking the cycle means finally telling the truth. Okay? So, let's get started. We'll start here. In some friendships, there is an unspoken role assigned to you. You become the strong one, the dependable one, the understanding one, the mature one, the fixer, the peacemaker. Yeah, the counselor, the backup plan. And listen, you'll hear me giggle a lot because I can resonate with a lot of this. Okay. And so pay me no attention. But if you resonate with it, then by all means, laugh along with me. But yeah, you become the backup plan, the one who is expected to show up, even when nobody shows up for you. And because you're living, like this loyal and compassionate person, this life, you may not recognize the imbalance right away because you're loyal, because you're loving. At first it may even feel good to be needed. Somebody trusts you, somebody leans on you, somebody values your advice. Somebody says, "I don't know what I would do without you." And listen, there is nothing wrong with being supportive, not at all. There is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being the friend who cares deeply. There's nothing wrong with having a heart that wants to help people. That's okay. But here's where it becomes unhealthy. When being needed becomes being used, that's not healthy. When being supportive becomes draining, when being loyal becomes being controlled by others, that's not healthy. When being understanding, when it becomes ignoring your own pain, your own needs, not healthy. When being the chosen one turns into being the only one doing the emotional labor, that's not friendship, seeds. That's imbalance, okay? Wearing friendship's clothes. Okay, that's what that is. And sometimes the reason it's so hard to see it, this thing being toxic, is that toxic friendships do not always look toxic, at least not in the beginning, right? They may look like closeness, loyalty. They may look like we've been through so much together. You may resonate with these again. They may look like that's just how things are. That's how they are. That's how my friend is. But seeds, let me tell you, history does not excuse, someone doing harm to you or harm to that friendship relationship. Time does not automatically make a relationship healthy. And just because someone has been in your life for years does not mean they still have permission to mishandle you. Okay, let's go to scripture again because scripture, it tells us iron sharpens iron. So a man sharpened the countenance of his friend. And that's in Proverbs 27:17. And what that means is that good friendship sharpens you, it does not shrink you. Let's talk about it. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the signs that may, indicate that your friendship is toxic because sometimes we call it a rough patch when it's really a pattern that's developing and we're not really paying attention. Okay? So one sign of a toxic friendship is one-sidedness. You're always checking on them, but they rarely check on you. Okay? You celebrate their wins, but they minimize yours. If they celebrate at all, if they acknowledge your wins at all. And when they do, they minimize them. You listen to their problems for hours. But when you need support, suddenly, they're too busy. They're distracted, or they are just totally unavailable. You know their struggles in detail, but they barely know what you're carrying at all. That is not mutual care. That is emotional consumption. You're being emotionally depleted. Another sign is manipulation. Manipulation can sound like, after all I've done for you, I've been there for you for a long time. We've been friends forever. Oh, you're acting different. You must think you're better than me now. I guess I know who my real friends are. If you've heard any of these things, that is manipulation. Okay, manipulation often shows up when you start setting boundaries. As long as you are available, listen now, as long as you are available and agreeable and accessible, everything seems fine. But the moment you say no, pull back your energy, or protect your peace, then you suddenly become the problem. That's a sign. That's a sign. That's manipulation. Okay, another sign is their lack of support for you. Some people just absolutely love you when you're struggling. When you're in your struggle season, they absolutely love you because your struggle keeps them comfortable. Hear me? But when you start healing and growing and building, becoming and aligning with your purpose, they get very quiet. They don't clap. They don't ask questions. They don't share your work. Mm-mm. They don't speak life over you. They may even make little comments to pull you back down, get you out of alignment. Yeah, you think you're all that now. Maybe you've heard that before. You've changed. You're doing too much. No, seeds. You're not doing too much. They're not doing enough. Okay? That's what that is. Sometimes you did not change into someone fake. Okay? You changed into someone free. And people who benefited from your brokenness may not know how to handle your wholeness. Okay? They may not know how to handle that. So you have to be very careful about sharing with those that you consider to be your friends. Okay? Another sign is emotional exhaustion. So pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to how your body responds after interacting with certain people. Ask yourself, do you feel lighter or heavier? Are you at peace or do you feel anxious? I've gotten off the phone with some friends and oh my gosh, I couldn't even sleep. I had their problems on my mind all night. Yeah, pay attention to your body. Do you feel heavier or lighter, peaceful or anxious? Ask yourself that. Do you feel encouraged or do you feel drained? Like I did. Totally drained. Not even connecting the dots. Not even connecting the dots. Do you feel like you're yourself after you engage with your friend or friends? Or do you feel like you have to recover from the conversation? Because your body will often tell the truth before your mouth or your brain is ready to identify or say it. Yeah. Pay attention to your body. Another sign is constant competition. A toxic friend may not openly say they are in competition with you, but they move like it. Pay attention to the movement. You share good news and they shift the conversation back to themselves. They don't really want to hear your good news. You buy a car and they say, oh, that's nice. But when they buy a car, oh, that you're super excited for them. Come on, let's go take a ride. I love your car, but you don't get that in return. Pay attention. Secret competition. You didn't even think about it because you're too busy being loving and being caring you're that person, you're that friend. You accomplish something and they bring it up they bring up what they did, or just totally ignore you. You're excited and they become dismissive. Yeah, that's competition, right? You're grieving and they make it about their pain. You're growing and they try to remind you of who you used to be, as if you can't change, as if change isn't good. That's not friendship. That is not friendship. That is comparison with a front row seat. And here's another one. Here's another one. They only respect your boundaries when they benefit from them. Okay, now that might sound a little bit confusing. So let me just go over it a little bit. They only respect your boundaries when they benefit from your boundaries. Sounds weird, I know. But here's the thing. They want you to understand their limits, right? Don't call me at a certain time. I'm having company. I don't want you. I'll call you when I'm done. Whatever it is, whatever it is. They want you to understand their limits. They want you to respect their space. They want you to be patient with their process. Okay? I'm going through something right now. Can I call you back later, or can we connect next week? And you're fine with that. You respect their boundaries. Okay? You're patient with their process. But when you need boundaries, now you're being selfish. Now you're acting funny. Now you're distant. Now you're just not the friend that they expect you to be, always available. Seeds, a person who only respects boundaries when they are the one setting them is not a person that honors the relationship. They don't honor the friendship. They don't honor the connection. They're protecting the process because they're controlling the narrative. And when it doesn't fit their agenda, you become the problem. Now let's be real. This thing can take a toll on you. Toxic friendships take a toll. They can wear you down. They can impact your mental and emotional well-being without you even realizing it. Some people go for years not realizing that their toxic friendship, because they don't identify it as being toxic, that this toxic friendship is draining them mentally and emotionally. It's affecting your well-being. They can make you second guess yourself. They can make you feel guilty for having needs of your own. They can make you over-explain or over-apologize and over-function just to keep the connection from falling apart because you consider this your friend. And sometimes when you've been chosen, for too long, you're the chosen one in the friendship for too long, you start confusing responsibility with love. All right? You think maybe I need to be more patient, maybe I'm being too sensitive, maybe you're just going through something, maybe you should give them another chance. And listen, grace is beautiful. But grace without boundaries, it becomes permission. Permission. You can love people and you still recognize when the relationship is costing you too much. Okay? You can love them and still recognize when the relationship is costing you too much. You can forgive people and still not give them the same access. You can care about someone and still choose distance. Because when a friendship repeatedly leaves you feeling small and drained and unseen or emotionally unsafe, your soul starts sending signals. It does. Okay, you may become irritable. You may feel anxious, before answering their phone calls when you see their name pop up on the phone, you get anxious, like, and you shouldn't feel like that if they're your friend. If there's a mutual give and take, you won't feel like that. You get excited when they're calling, okay? You may avoid telling them good news. You may feel obligated instead of connected, or guilty when you choose to get some rest. You may become resentful because deep down, I mean really deep down, you know the relationship is not balanced. You know that. And resentment is often a sign that a boundary has been crossed too many times. Too many times. And let me say that again, because this is important. You need to understand that, because if you're feeling these feelings, if you don't do something about it soon, it's only going to get worse. Resentment is often a sign that a boundary has been crossed, not once or twice, but way too many times. Okay? Sometimes you're not bitter, you're depleted. And that causes resentment. Sometimes you're not mean, you're just tired. And that causes resentment. Sometimes you're not acting different. You're finally responding differently to what has been hurting you, wounding you. Okay? It's exhausting you. You're irritable. The friendship is unbalanced. You can't share your good news because they won't celebrate you. And you know that. And you realize that. So instead of sharing it with them, you stay connected to that toxic friendship, unable to be yourself in that relationship. Okay? Now let's talk about why it can be so hard to, step back from some of these toxic relationships. Because if you're staying in that relationship knowing that you're going through these emotions with this friend, but you don't want to hurt their feelings, that's part of it. That's part of it. That's part of that toxicity. You don't want to hurt their feelings. And why is that? Why is that? Why is it so hard to step back from that toxic friendship? I'll tell you why. I'm so glad you asked. Because from the outside, people may say things like, when you're talking to somebody about that friendship, they might tell you to just stop talking to them, just block them or just move on, But it really isn't that simple. And those of us who've been in these friendships, we understand that it's not that simple, because you really genuinely love and care for this person or these people, your friends. You call them friends for a reason, because you genuinely carry love, respect, concern for these people and their well-being. You love them. They're your friends. Some of them we call family because we've been around them so long, they feel like family. And we know family can be toxic too. So we kind of relate in that friendship with them being somewhat like our family members, okay? Those of you who know, you know. All right. It doesn't need to be explained. All right. But sometimes we keep them around, and it's hard for us to let go or to fix these things. Sometimes this person has been, a lifelong friend. Sometimes they know your whole history because they've been friends with you for so long. You know their history. All right. They've been with you through the hard seasons. Their hard seasons, your hard seasons. You know them. They're family. You've shared memories and secrets. Your family knows their family. You've shared church spaces and friend groups, even business cycles or circles. Some of you have been in the same business circles and cycles together. Sometimes the friendship is attached to who you used to be. And letting go of the friendship feels like letting go of a version of yourself. It can be exhausting. This is a real thing. Okay, letting go can mean letting go a version of you because you are bonded to that person for a reason, and usually it's a trauma bond. And I believe I talk about that in another one of my podcasts. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, you connect with people through trauma bonds. But see, listen, every relationship that was real in one season, understand that it's not required to remain close in the next season, okay? Or in every season. Understand that. That's important because some people were part of your survival season, but they may not be aligned with your healing. Some people knew how to comfort your wounds, but they may not know how to celebrate your freedom. Some people loved the version of you that needed them, okay? But because you're in a new season, they reject the version of you that no longer depends on their approval. And that can be painful, but it's also revealing. And sometimes the grief is not just about losing the person. Sometimes the grief is about accepting what the friendship really was in the first place. You may grieve the friendship that you thought you had. You may grieve the version of them, your friend, you hoped they would become, you know, the potential, okay? You may grieve all the years you've poured into something that could not pour back into you. You may grieve the realization, yeah, the realization that loyalty kept you longer than love did. And that kind of grief, it deserves compassion, okay? So give yourself some grace. Be compassionate about it. Don't rush yourself, okay? Because these things take time. It's a healing process. Understand that. Healing takes time. But also, do not use that grief as a reason to return to what kept you wounded in the first place. Don't keep returning back to that. In fact, don't return back to it at all. You're trying to get past that. You're trying to heal. So give yourself grace and time to heal, but do not return to the toxic relationship or the toxic friendship. Once you set those boundaries, keep them set. And if they don't want to honor your boundaries, then it's just time to move on from that friendship. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm only giving you advice. So if this is you, just understand what the friendship, understand the friendship, get some clarity, and get some healing. Okay, so as we close, because this is just part one of it, because I'm going to go into part two, and that's when I'm going to give you steps on how to heal. So as we close part one, I want you to sit with the truth, with this truth, that sometimes the hardest part of healing from a toxic friendship is not admitting that the relationship hurt you. It's admitting how long you stayed because you were trying to prove your loyalty, your love, your value, or your strength. Being the chosen one in a friendship can feel honorable, at least at first. You become the dependable one, the listener, the fixer, the person who always shows up. But when your presence is constantly required and your pain is rarely considered, that is not mutual friendship. That is emotional imbalance. And maybe today helped you name what you have been feeling for so long. And I hope it did. I really hope it did. Maybe it helped you recognize the signs, the one sided effort, maybe the guilt, the manipulation, the emotional exhaustion, maybe the way your body feels heavy after certain conversations. I hope it helped. The way you keep showing up for people who rarely ask, how are you really doing? And then listen to your response. I hope it helped. But here's the truth, seeds. You are not wrong for noticing the weight. You are not wrong for feeling tired. You are not wrong for asking why a friendship keeps requiring you to lose yourself in order to keep it alive, to keep that friendship going. You're not required. to do these things. And I know letting go is hard. I understand. Sometimes it is hard because of the history. Sometimes it's hard because of the memories. Sometimes it's hard because you still love the person. And sometimes it's hard because the old version of you was trained to believe that leaving meant failing. It's not failing. I don't believe in failure. I believe in lessons. Life is a lesson. It's a huge lesson that helps and guides us through the drama, the trauma, the toxicity. And when we get on the other side, there's a lesson in all of it. There's a lesson. Okay? But choosing your peace is not failure. Understand that. It's not. Sometimes it's wisdom. So as we pause here in part 1, I'm going to say it again. Do not rush to fix everything, at least not tonight. Just start by telling yourself the truth. Ask yourself, where have I been carrying more than my share? Where have I confused being needed with being valued? Where have I stayed connected out of guilt instead of alignment? And where is my peace asking me to pay attention? Because before you can heal the pattern seeds, you have to recognize it. Okay, so in part 2, we are going to go deeper into the healing. We're going to talk about setting boundaries and releasing guilt. All right, redefining friendship and moving forward in alignment without becoming bitter, cold, or closed off. Okay, because the goal is not to stop loving people. That's not it. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself. Okay, so until then, until next time, seeds, just remember this: breaking the cycle begins the moment you stop calling exhaustion loyalty. Until next time, I love you. Bye for now.